Chapter 5. Color Values. Going back to a remote past, we not only find many great philosophers who believed in the efficacy of music for the healing of the sick, but also find recorded many notable cases of such healing. And these cures are not confined to any particular clime or country, but seem to have taken place all through the ages, first in one country and then in another. There are so many well-authenticated cases of cures that apparently there can be no valid reason offered either to deny or disprove such claims for music. Of the use of color, however, in connection with music as a therapeutic agent, there is apparently no record, and perhaps there may have been a good reason for this, for it is very doubtful if the people of the past saw or appreciated color as we do in the present. The development of color seeing is just as much an inner development, and perhaps even more so, than the hearing of musical sounds, and it is singular, to say the least, that, if people of ancient times knew colors and felt them as much as we do, there should be so little record of it in the writings of the past. Our books of the present refer to color over and over again, in one way or another, but you will find few such references in the Middle Ages, or even in those of a later date, and even those references mention comparatively few colors. It may be argued that the great old masters of painting were in possession of, and used even finer colors than those in use by our modern painters. In one way, that is true. They had a knowledge of more enduring color than we possess at the present time, but it must be quite evident to the student that they used far less variety of color than our own painters do at the present time. So far as I know, then, color has never been associated with music for therapeutic purposes. Within recent years, a number of writers of books have dwelt on the value of colors for the healing of the sick, but I have never heard of mental or physical ills being cured solely through the use of color. In this chapter, one offers suggestions as to how color may be combined with music in such a way as to get the greatest good from both. I have often known the sick to take decided dislikes to objects of different colors in the rooms they occupied, and in some cases the dislike was so great that the distasteful object had to be removed. If, in the treatment of the sick with music, harmonious music is necessary so that the appeal to the ear may have the effect of awakening the inner emotions, then it must also be necessary, in order to engender a harmonious condition of thought and feeling, to make the same appeal through the sight, so that the seeing and the hearing may jointly work together. The subject is so large a one that it will not be possible in this chapter to do other than indicate how color is to be made to harmonize with music for the healing of the sick. Everything we see in the world is visible to us because it either absorbs light or reflects light. Almost every object reflects light to some degree, and some objects do so in a very marked way. But every object also absorbs light, some absorbing by far the greater part of the light, and others reflecting the greater part. When a ray of sunshine passes through a glass prism, it is decomposed or separated, and the result is that we have what is called the 7 prismatic colors. We have first 3 colors which we call primary, red, yellow, and blue. 3 more we call secondary, orange, green, and violet. From these, we might go on to say, we have the tertiary colors made up of 2 parts of the secondary colors. We might continue a further analysis of the subject of color without much gain in doing so. In music, it is the relation that one note or one chord bears to another that produces melody and harmony of sounds. The same law may be said to prevail in the use of color. We might say that there is both analogy and contrast between the different colors and different chords, and if we are to get the happiest effects from both, it will be necessary for us to observe the laws of analogy and contrast both in music and in color. Too often in the furnishing of rooms, comparatively little attention is paid to either one or the other. Consequently, a room having everything in it necessary to make it both beautiful and harmonious is often only incongruous because of things which detract from the harmony and beauty of the rest of the room. When we speak of the harmonies of analogy, we are referring to the colors that are related, such as red and orange yellow, yellow and blue, blue and green, violet and red. Now these colors in the furnishing of a room can usually be made to produce a greater harmony of effect, especially in small rooms, than can be done through contrast of colors. In small rooms, when contrast of color is used, it has the effect of making the room appear smaller. Harmonious contrast, then, will be best obtained in large rooms, that is, harmonies of contrast from what are called unrelated colors, such as blue and orange, red and green, yellow and violet. Just a word of explanation as to why the terms analogy and contrast are used in defining color harmonies. Red and yellow are the first and third notes in the octave of color. From them there is produced orange, which partakes of the color of both. Therefore, orange is related to red and is related to yellow as well. Violet draws part of its color from indigo and part from red. Blue, which is the fifth note in the octave of color, is related to green on one side and violet on the other. Thus we see how colors are related. Now for contrast or unrelated color, take as an illustration red and green. Green is a combination of yellow and blue, and therefore is in no way related to red. Take yellow and violet. Violet is a combination of red and indigo, therefore in no way related to yellow, and orange is a combination of red and yellow and not related to blue. Yet from all these colors we may produce a wonderful beauty of contrast, so that analogy and contrast both have their own special harmonies. In juxtaposition with both analogy and contrast of color, white may be used, as this tends to intensify color, or black which tends to weaken it, while gray neutralizes it. Luminous or warm colors such as red, orange, yellow, and the lighter shades of green tend to enhance one's mental and physical vibration, so that people suffering from loss of vitality may be aided by their use, while people laboring under excitement would be soothed and quieted best through the use of the non-luminous or so-called cold colors. Again, much depends on whether the room receives much or little light. If the light is very strong, then subdued colors will tend to make the room more restful, while if the light is poor, then luminous colors will prove the best. Luminous colors, however, tend to make a small room look smaller, while such colors as greens, blues, and grays have the reverse effect. Again, there is the question of color in relation to temperature. Cool colors in summer will, as a general thing, give better effect than warm colors. In winter, there is a keener enjoyment derived from warm colors than from those which are considered cold. We need much more color in our houses in the winter than we do at any other season of the year, because nature, during the winter, gives us little of anything other than cold or neutral color. I think there is a much keener enjoyment of bright colored flowers in the home during wintertime than during the summer season. The interior luminous colors in the house make the necessary contrast with the outside world, while in the late spring and summer and early autumn, nature gives such varieties of colors and hues and shades and tints that the cold, subdued, or neutral colors within the home give the needed contrast, causing one to feel more cool and restful than would otherwise prove the case. Great discrimination should be used by those who undertake the use of color for the treatment of the sick, for the room that would be of the greatest help to one person might prove decidedly the reverse to another. It is my opinion that all bedrooms should be made to look bright and happy, but not stately or cold. To get the effect of brightness and happiness, it is necessary to avoid, in so far as possible, straight lines. Circles, curves, loops, etc. can all be used in such a way as to produce beauty of harmony and a happiness that cannot be produced through the use of straight lines. It would seem almost as though nature abhorred the straight line as much as it does a vacuum. Take those trees, mostly of the cedar family, that grow straight up with few branches. Their foliage is usually very dark, and they present, more or less, a gloomy appearance. Somehow, they have always seemed to me to have an affinity with cemeteries, while the white birch, in turn, with its twisted and gnarled branches and its leaves of light green, seem fairly to dance with joy. If you want beauty in a small room, avoid the straight line as much as possible. Give curves to your drapery or festoons, and do away with everything that tends to severity. This is what I call making a happy room. After all, it is not so much a question of the quantity or even the quality of what you have in it as of the judgment you have used in harmonizing all its effects. It is a singular thing that the Greeks in their fresco work used red, blue, and yellow, intensified or modified by white or blue. It is singular for this reason, that those are the three primary colors, corresponding in music to the first, third, and fifth notes of the octave, which really form everything that is fundamental both in music and color. And I have not the slightest doubt that the Greeks had as perfect a foundation for their music as they had for their use of color. Their use of blue, purple, and gold showed them to be master colorists chief among the nations of the world. I have an idea that violet will prove one of the most efficacious of all colors for the healing of the sick, but it will demand better judgment in its use than possibly all the rest of the colors combined. Because into this our seventh color there enters not only all the vibration which has preceded it, but it is united with an invisible color, red, that gives it chemical properties only as yet partially understood. I find, too, that comparatively few people in the world have as yet any keen appreciation of this most wonderful of all colors of the spectrum. There is such a profound psychology of color that I think if people were left free to choose their own colors, the healer could determine their degree of soul development by the very choice and use of colors, and music might be used for the same end in the same way. The soul and mind, if left entirely to themselves, will give an exact impression outwardly of that to which they have unfolded inwardly. While violet is considered one of the cold colors, just the reverse of this is true. It takes a certain amount of coldness from indigo, but it takes again from the invisible red, or what is now called ultraviolet, a warmth that none of the other colors know, not even red, the first note in the first octave of color. But it is not a warmth that excites either the physical or the mental qualities, but one that excites man's highest emotional nature. The color is essentially a spiritual one. On one side, it is the ending of the old order, and on the other, it is the beginning of the new. We are certainly at the beginning of a new order in life that will receive its supreme direction from the indwelling spirit, but will manifest itself in the diversity of new musical tones and melodies of new visible colors and hues. There is a new world that is almost here, a world that will be apprehended through a new consciousness. It is only within comparatively recent times that we have heard of what composers and musicians call color music. There is much of Wagner's music that would come under this heading. Undoubtedly it came from Wagner's love of color. For, in a letter he wrote we read, "Is it really such an outrageous demand if I claim a right to the little bit of luxury I like? I, who am preparing enjoyment for thousands. I am differently organized from other men. I must have beauty, color, light." This love of beauty, color, and light produced later the wonder of beauty, color, and light in his compositions. For whatever we love, that we all come to express in one way or another. Undoubtedly, the love of color on the part of the composer affected his music, and if the inner eye were opened for seeing emotion as the inner ear hears it, in all music we should see the beauty of color as well as hear the melody of sound. The composer of music who has no love of color will never be able to put color into his music. The music of the future will not only contain all the rhythm, melody, and harmony of sound, but all the hues, shades, and tints of color as well. For color is sound made visible and sound is color made audible. Through the perfect union of the two will come music far more beautiful than the world has ever known. Color music is therefore no misnomer. All the colors may be felt and afterward written into music. I have heard of a blind boy describing the touch of scarlet geraniums as the sound of a trumpet. That description is really an accurate one, and I believe color, in turn, may be so felt and understood that it may be translated into music. In fact, color music exists as a reality. Wallace Remington, professor of fine arts at Queen's College, London, has not only written a book on color music, but has invented a color organ and other color instruments to give expression to color in a musical way. And the late Sir Hubert von Herkomer, R.A., who wrote an introduction to the book, ends it in this way. But to sum up briefly, Mr. Remington's mobile color system seems to me a method to enable one to see sound and hear color. And in another part of his introduction he says, referring to the color organ, to sit at this instrument and improvise for half an hour, whilst watching the ever-varying combinations of colors on the screen produced by the playing, is not only an unspeakable delight, but of real health-giving effect on the sense of color. How much more valuable as a stimulant is mobile color than the fixed colors of a rug, which the eye gets accustomed to, and which thereby acts no longer as a tonic to those interested in color music? This book will prove of much interest. A recent writer on color has said, "Color is indispensable to man's well-being and happiness. Deprivation of color might render him liable to physical and even mental deterioration." It is said to be a recognized pathological fact that some sort of color is indispensable to the healthy condition of the eye. I have been told that more colorblind men and women exist among the Quakers than among any other body of people, and it has been accounted for by their abstinence from the use of color. The Quakers of the past have clothed themselves almost entirely in what might be called neutral colors, and it is necessary to like color in order to see it. I do not think that anyone should dislike any color. That very dislike will gradually obliterate their sense of that particular color. What we all need to do is to try to see more and more of the beauty, wonder, and harmonies in color, and in this way have an ever-expanding field of color open to our vision. Sooner or later, a new octave of color will be opened up to the vision of those who have prepared themselves to receive it. But before that can come, there must be the thorough appreciation of the spectrum of color we already possess. We have 7 colors, but from those 7 there can be produced 1,000,000 hues, shades, and tints. And when we are able to see these through the use of our eyes, then the beauty of color will have been multiplied in us to such a degree as is almost inconceivable now. What the world needs today is a greater love of the beautiful, a keener appreciation of true and beautiful ideals, a stronger desire to enter into and enjoy all those things, which, while not making for worldly possessions, nevertheless make for the real riches of life. Why should material riches so engross the mind that the joy and the happiness of life is lost in the quest for worldly possessions? It seems to me that men and women place all their hopes of happiness in material things and lose sight of the supreme fact that everything necessary for a bright, joyous, happy life is resident in the self. We cannot purchase the love of other people with anything that we may give to them. Only love will call out love. Love is an attribute in each person's life. One may use it or refrain from using it, but only through its use need one hope to call it out in other lives. The love of beauty lives in us. Through its use, day by day or hour by hour, we are constantly seeing new beauties in nature and beauty of qualities and character in individuals. If beauty is to grow more and more a state of consciousness in life, it will be because of our use of it. Harmonious living is brought to pass through the use of control of mind. The one who seeks to replace discordant thoughts with true ones eventually gains that peace and that poise of mind which is so necessary to all true living. No, the real riches of life, its joy and its happiness, are not wrapped up in our material possessions, but in the rhythm, melody, and harmony of our own consciousness. Each person has the power within himself to make his life what he wills it to be. He can establish for himself a relationship to everything that is necessary to his happiness or well-being. To the degree that he uses his innate powers and possibilities, to that degree will he express the pure tone and beauty of music and color in his own life. End of chapter.